Hi everyone, Mike again with MEG Motors. Today we're going to be working on this 2017 KFX50 kids four-wheeler. It's in really good shape. The story is the owner brought it to me, he just bought it, and the story is it was only run a couple of times and then it was put up and it's set for several years, and so now it won't start. First thing I did was I bought a battery and put a battery in it. We needed that to kind of even see if it would start. We're going to run a test on this one, start on spray test. So we need three things for this four-wheeler to run. We need a spark at the spark plug, and the spark has to occur at the right time. We need compression, and we need fuel. And so we can test a lot of that with a start on spray test. So I've already opened the air cleaner. We're going to spray a little air cleaner, a little carburetor cleaner into the air cleaner, and we're going to turn it over and see if we can get it to attempt to start. I don't know if it will start. There is gas in the tank, so there's a chance it'll start, but I don't think it will. The other thing is this four-wheeler has a safety feature on it. It's a safety lanyard, and it fits into a switch at the back of the four-wheeler, and so what it does is it gives like a pull cord for a parent, and you can follow your kid around on the quad, and if they get out of control, you pull the cord and it unclips from the quad and the quad dies. I've looked around and honestly I'm having a hard time finding a lanyard to put on the safety switch, and it won't run without it. So I'm going to have to bypass that switch at some point, I think, until I can find a lanyard. There's lanyards for sale, but they're the wrong one. So I don't know why. I would have thought that would have been an easy thing to find, but it hasn't been so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a quick start on a spray test and make sure that this will run, and then I assume or suspect that we're going to end up pulling the carburetor off of this and cleaning it out. That's typically what goes wrong with these. So let's see if it'll start on spray, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I'm going to use a little probe here to set the safety switch. We're going to spray some carb cleaner in here. Turn the key on, the safety switch is on. I'm going to set the switch and we're going to hit the button. So yeah, it starts easy on spray, so I believe everything's okay with the engine. We just got to get the carburetor off of it, clean it out, and see if we can make it run without the spray. Sometimes it can be a challenge to get the carburetor off of these. They're hidden under all the body work, and so we'll see what it's going to take to get the carburetor off this one and see if we can get it cleaned up. All right, so to get the carburetor off of this one, we're gonna have to pull this panel. The carburetor is behind this panel right here, so we'll get started pulling this panel off. And so got a couple of screws right here. Then we have 4 bolts down here. All right, and then we have a number of these clips, and to get these clips off, you take a screwdriver and you push the center in, and then they'll release and come out. So you push and pull them out. So we're going to pop all of those. And then hopefully that'll be enough to get our, there we go. All right, so that gets our cover off, and there's our carburetor right there. All right, so here's our carburetor we're going to try to take off. I'm not sure how good of a camera angle we have on this. It's the best I can do for now. I'm going to loosen the the duct going to the air cleaner from the back of the carburetor. Wow, that was pretty difficult. All right, we got a couple of hoses on here, like a overflow hose maybe. Alright, so fuel line, I've disconnected this electronic cable. Got 2 bolts that hold this on, kind of going from the front. Alright, so that gets the carburetor mostly loose. We got one more drain hose. And we got to deal with the throttle cable. And on this one, the throttle cable just screws in to the top. And hopefully that'll come out easy. There we go. Alright, so there's our carburetor. Now we'll take this over to the bench, open it up, and see what's going on inside. Alright, so let's pop the bowl off of this and see what's going on inside. I poured some gas out of this carburetor after I got it off, and it smelled really old and nasty. Oh yeah. All right, we're looking pretty crusty in there. Definitely got some carburetor troubles. But it was filling with fuel, which was a good thing, and it wasn't overflowing, which is a good thing. So that means the needle and seat must have been sealing at least. So we're going to pull the pivot pin and take the float and the needle out. Yeah, like I said, definitely looking crusty. Go get a couple more tools. Alright, so like most motorcycle and four-wheeler carburetors, we have 2 main circuits. We have a main circuit and we have a pilot or an idle circuit, or a low-speed circuit, some people call them. This jet over here is our jet for our low-speed circuit, and it's completely plugged up. And this jet is the jet for the high-speed circuit. And so we're going to have to pull both of those jets and clean those. And then we also have this passage here, which is a passage for the choke. And so this has an electric enrichment system, and it'll pull fuel from the carburetor through this pipe right here. Unfortunately, that pipe gets its fuel from this cavity in the side of the bowl, which fills through a very small hole in the bottom of the bowl, and so I suspect that's going to be plugged up as well. So we need to clean that or our choke won't work. Plus the bowl itself is just pretty nasty inside. Looks like it's going to clean off okay, but it's pretty nasty. All right, so let's take, we'll take our low speed jet out first. And then we'll take our high speed jet. And so it's coming out with the emulsion tube. So this piece is called an emulsion tube, and it's used to mix air with the fuel before it gets into the throat of the carburetor to help it burn better. We're going to separate these two pieces. There's our main jet, and here's our emulsion tube. All right. So I was looking to see if we had a mixture adjustment screw, and I don't see one on this carburetor, so we have no way to adjust the idle mixture. We have idle speed, which is right here, but oh, idle mixture, there it is. It's under this cap right here. Yeah, so it's going to be, I can see, just looking at the passages in the carburetor, so there's an opening at the back of the carburetor here, which goes through this passageway right here and this passageway right here, which is how air is introduced into the low speed, or the high speed circuit. No, that's the low speed circuit. And the low speed circuit, if you looked at it, it also has an emulsion tube built onto it. And so this right here will be an adjustment screw that adjusts how much air is mixed in with the fuel. So this will be an idle air screw. And so we're gonna take the cap off of this, so we'll be able to adjust it once we get this back together. So yeah, that all looks good. And I think this plastic cap will just come off. Then we're gonna take this enrichment system off, so we can confirm that our cold mixture enrichment system works as well. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So we're going to clean the bowl up. I'll show you the passage that fills the cold enrichment chamber once we get this cleaned up. And we'll go through the process to remove this cap. So we'll drill a small hole in it, we'll put a screw in it, and we'll pop that cap out. And they usually come out pretty easy. So let me spend a few minutes cleaning this up, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I've done a preliminary cleaning of the carburetor, and it actually cleaned up pretty nicely. So for the choke passage, like we were talking about, the opening for the fuel is right here. And so it's important, for instance, that if I spray fuel or a carburetor cleaner in here, it should come out in that opening like it just did. And so it's important that happens. If that doesn't happen, the choke system is not going to work. And so that's good. That's really all we need to clean on this bowl. We need similarly, so here's our choke passage. This is what's going to pull fuel out of this chamber. And so we need to be sure that from the top, if I spray in here, it should come out there. It should come out through that tube, which it does. And so that's a good sign. That's our cold enrichment system. And so here's our main jet. Our main jet's going to have an opening up into the throat of the carburetor. And so I can see light through there, so I know it's open. But similarly, if you spray carburetor cleaner in there, you should see it come out through the top, which it does. Like we just saw just a second ago. Yeah, just like that. So that's good. We also have our idle mixture. So here's our low speed jet passage. It has an opening also in the throat of the carburetor that sits right in front of the main opening. So we're going to spray some fuel in there and make sure that it comes out where it needs to, inside the carburetor. So yeah, I don't know if you can see that in there, but there's a spray of fuel, carburetor cleaner coming up in there as well. And then in addition to that, we also have, air passages back here. And so this main passage right here, we can see the chamber is our air passage into our main jet opening. Need to make sure that's open, which it obviously is. And then here's our air passage into our low speed jet. It goes through this passage up into our low speed jet. So we should be sure that we have, and there we have fuel coming out of there, or carburetor cleaner coming out of there as well. And so yeah, that's all good. For our jets, so here's our main jet. I've cleaned it up on the outside and it looks really good, but it's still plugged. And so to open this jet up, I'm going to use a small piece of wire, and we're just going to poke it down through the jet and work it around. And then we'll spray some carburetor cleaner through the jet. To make sure that it's clear. So it looks good. Same thing on our low speed jet. Our low speed jet is probably the hardest one to clean, because the hole in this jet is going to be really, really small. So you have to have a small piece of wire. I actually pulled this out of a handheld wire brush that I have, which always seems to be the right size. So we're going to push this down. Oh, actually it cleaned up pretty. Sometimes it can be really hard to push this through the low speed jet, but this one actually went through pretty easily, which is good. Same thing, we're going to spray some carburetor cleaner through there. Oh yeah, I saw the dirt come out of that. Then we also need to ensure that on our emulsion tubes, these holes in the side are clear. And so those are good. Those are good. Same thing on the main jet emulsion tube. Should have open holes all the way through. All right, so that all looks good. So we're ready to actually start reassembling this carburetor now. So we're going to put our main emulsion tube back in. We're going to put our main jet in. Now nice and clean. We can confirm that we get fuel up through the main body of the carburetor, which we do. We're going to do our, actually we're going to hold off on the low speed jet. Let's work on getting the cover off of our adjustment screw. Give me just a second to pull some tools together and we'll work on that. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to take a spring-loaded center punch. I'm going to put a center punch hole right in the middle of our plug. I've got a drill bit with a drill bit chucked up. We're just going to drill a hole in this cap. That's drilled in a lot farther than I normally expect them to go. So So I want to make sure I'm not drilling into the top of the adjustment screw. So I'm going to go ahead and screw a screw into this and see if we can pull this out. Yeah, so here's our cap. It's good. Looks like I was drilling in to the top of the adjustment screw. That's a good thing we stopped. So it's got a screw. It's got a screw in there, but it takes a special shaped driver. And I'm gonna see if the ones that I have for small engine repair will work on this one. It's shaped like a D. Okay, so while we were off camera, I found another tool. In this case, it was the double D tool. Even though this is shaped with a single D, the double D tool fit better. And so what I did was I took the adjustment screw completely out and I cut a slot in it with a Dremel tool. Where this carburetor sits in the when it's installed in the quad, it's going to be very difficult to get this tool in there to do an adjustment. So it was easier to cut a slot in it so it can be adjusted with a screwdriver, which is what I wish they'd have done from the factory. And so now we at least have a chance of being able to adjust it. I'm going to screw it out till it's bottomed and then probably take it 1.5 turns out and we'll see what that does for us. Okay, so now we can go ahead and finish our assembly. We'll put our low speed jet back in. And we will reassemble. So it's also important on the needle, this plunger on the end is spring loaded. It's important that that works. And this one's fine. I took this clip off to check it. So we're going to put the needle back on our float. Let me make sure I get this on the right way. Yes. Put our needle back on our float. Install that back in the body of the carburetor. And put our pivot pin in. And so when it comes to setting the float height, there's measurements out there that will help you get the float height right. But in my experience, the float should be parallel to the body of the carburetor when it's adjusted correctly. I've done a bunch of carburetors and I've measured a bunch of them, and in every case when everything is just right, the float will be parallel to the body of the carburetor. And so this one's a little bit off. I'm going to adjust this one. I'm going to bend the float tab up just a little bit. There. So now we have our float is parallel. It went just a little too far. Our float is parallel to the body of the carburetor. So I think we're good there. And let's see, we'll put our bowl back on.
And we'll put our electric choke back on. And we'll snap the cover over it. All right, there we go. Now let's put this back on and see if we can make this quad run. Okay, so to put this all back together, we're going to start by sliding the slide back into the carburetor. It's important, if you look inside the cavity where this slide goes, there's a pin that sticks out of one side, and that pin has to fit in this slot. And if you don't get that right, it's going to hold the throttle wide open, which is dangerous, obviously. So you have to be careful. Make sure that when you put this in, that the slide goes all the way down into the bore of the carburetor. So hopefully you can see inside the carburetor there that the slide is all the way down and it rises, goes up and down with the throttle. If you miss that pin, that slide can be held wide open, which would be very dangerous when you went to ride this or start this quad. All right, and so we're gonna put this back into place. Connecting the drain hose on the bottom of the bowl. That connected. Then we have this spacer plate right here and 2 screws. Set that in place. Alright, so that's got it bolted in place. And I'm going to put the fuel line on. The electric choke connector. And we'll connect our air filter snorkel. All right. I think that's good. Time to see if it'll start. Alright, so I've turned the gas on. Giving it a second to fill the carburetor. Still have the air filter open in case we need to give it a prime to help it start, but let's see what happens. Key on. Come on. Alright. Oh, I know what. I forgot our safety switch still has to be bypassed. Alright. Let's give it a little prime, see if that helps. Alright, it seems to still only be running on prime, or the carburetor is out of adjustment to the point that it won't run. Alright, so I think the next thing we're going to have to do is come up with a permanent bypass for the kill switch, since we can't find a lanyard, so that we can see if we can get this running and adjust the carburetor. Okay, so I discovered that there's no fuel coming out of the petcock in the reserve position, which is where I was trying to run it. So I've turned it to the on position. We have some fuel coming out. We're going to try to start it again and maybe do some adjustment on the carburetor. So first thing we're going to do, okay, so we've made some progress. Obviously, it starts and runs now. It doesn't seem to want to take any throttle. So either our main jet is still dirty or too small, or we're not pulling enough fuel, we're not filling the bowl all the way up on the carburetor because the petcock is still not running as freely as it should. So I'm going to look and see how difficult it's going to be to pull the petcock off of this, and we'll go from there. Most of the time pulling the tank off is really difficult because you have to pull the front plastic off, and the front plastic won't come off with the handlebars on. And of course, to get the handlebars off, you have to strip everything off the ends of them, which means you're going to have to put on new grips because you have to cut this grip off. And so I'd rather not do that if I don't have to. So I'm going to see what I can do to maybe get it to flow fuel better, certainly out of the reserve position, and then we'll see what happens after that. Also want to put the air filter back together. Sometimes they won't run correctly if the air filter is not fully assembled, because there's enough restriction using the air filter housing and the element that it can make up for a slightly lean condition. So it sounds like it's lean. Typically when it won't take throttle like that, it's running lean for one reason or another. So we're going to try a couple of things and see if we can make it better. And if not, we may have to either pull the tank or pull the carburetor again. So let me reassemble this air filter and check a couple of things, and we'll see what we can do to make it better.
Okay, so I reassembled the airbox and it sounds much better. It's taken the throttle now. I'm going to start it up here in just a minute, and it seems like it wants to go. So I think we're going to finish putting it back together and take it for a test ride and make sure that it's okay. But here's what it sounds like with the airbox back together. Sounds like it may still need a little bit of adjustment on the idle. Maybe idle it up just a little bit, but other than that, it sounds pretty good. So yeah, we're gonna put this side back together, put the seat back on, take it for a little ride and see how it works, and hopefully this will we'll be able to call this one fixed. So let me do that, and I'll come back with a final report after we do a test ride. Alright, so I think we have this one dialed finally. It actually gave me a little trouble after the last video segment. I took it out for a ride and it ran okay for a few minutes. Then it started sputtering and misfiring and finally died on me, and it wouldn't restart. And I brought it back into the shop and wasn't sure what was wrong with it. But eventually I found out that there was water in the gas. And there was a lot of water in the gas. I think I got probably close to 1/4 of a gallon of water out of the gas tank. Now I don't know how it ran as much as it did, but somehow it did. And so I drained the tank, I siphoned the gas out of the tank, and I pulled the hose off the bottom of the tank and drained the tank completely and put some fresh gas back in it. And yeah, now it seems to be running really good. Yeah, starts right up and runs and pulls good. So I think we can call this one fixed. The carburetor is definitely dirty. Obviously we saw those jets were bad. That carburetor was really dirty. But it wasn't just that, it was the water in the gas as well. And so between those two, I think we're going to call this one fixed. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Check my playlist. There's other videos out there about small engine repair. And yeah, keep checking back. There'll be more videos coming soon. And thanks for watching.